Yeah. Let's talk about friendship because that I hadn't thought about it like as I was reading it, but then as I was like writing my notes for this conversation, I was like, what are the themes? And in there, it's actually lack of friendship or like survivalship, but not quite friendship. Um, but yeah, before I even say too much, what comes up for you when I just say friendship as we think about the coldest winter ever?
More like frenemies. I think it reminds me of my upbringing or just the different friendships and how different people have come and gone in my life, particularly people that I've grown up with, and how sometimes you just know who you know or you know what you know. And I think their friendships in that book was just based on their proximity to to each other. It wasn't so much about them cultivating a real relationship or kinship. It was just like our dads sell drugs together, we're all either related or live next door to each other. We just like it just kind of evolved in that way, but there was never really any no real true sisterhood because none of them really don't know how to be a friend or a sister to each other. They're rooted in trauma, they're rooted in materialism,
Mhm.
and they're rooted, like I said, in proximity to each other. So they're really just the friendships are based on just the surroundings. Really,
The
it's not,
surroundings,
there's
yeah.
nothing there. There's no roots.
And the competition, when you said the
Oh yeah.
material, it made me think of it's material and competition with each other as it
Mhm.
relates to the material. Again, like we were saying, not best grades in school, not, fastest on the track team, not star basketball player, but like who's got the most men after them,
Who's the
who's got
biased?
who's got the
Yeah.
flyest clothes, who's got the most freedom to be able to come and go, as if they're adults.
Mhm.
And I think it's just wild because, yeah, again, we keep talking about how old they are in this story. Like when the story starts, they're so young, you
Yeah.
know, and it's totally normal to have crushes and like to be into boys. Like that's totally adolescence. But just the surroundings had such an impact on how they weren't able to be little girls,
Yeah.
or young teenage girls or adolescents or coming of age girls. Like they weren't actually able to be that in a safe way. And it really became about survival,
Yeah.
about beating each other or staying close enough that, the person wasn't going to stab you in the back, but that you always felt ahead of them too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, one just close enough to be one step ahead. So
Mhm. Like she even
um
said about when they go to the beauty salon, she was like, me and my mom, we have this attitude that's like, yeah, bitches, like y'all,
bow
your
down.
man always work for us. Yeah, about
Mhm.
to us and A for the switch that happens. Like, here we go. But just like that's not even how you cultivate friendships. And we even
Yeah.
see now how we can still walk into spaces, especially Black women, guard up,
Mhm.
um,
Sizing each other up.
backing each
Yeah.
other up and trying to figure out how to stick. Like we want closeness because we can't, it's hard to cultivate in this world that doesn't, look like us, but also to be one step ahead because this world will beat you down. Like I still need to
Yeah.
be a little bit ahead of you because this world is like rough out here and
Mhm.
not the link arms. Or it's like we're holding each other's shoulders, but we're not linking arms type of thing. Because she has multiple moments of betrayal, like of betraying her friends, not being
Oh yeah.
betrayed, and the
Yeah. Oh.
perspective of her
Mhm.
narcissist. Maybe we were talking about her being selfish, like almost a narcissist at 14 to
Yeah.
16 years old, because
She
everything
showed
was
no
about her.
remorse
Mm-mm,
for anything or anyone.
mm-mm. It was power. And another word that I didn't write down, but I'm going to add it now, is just like power, like what power does to you, even when you're actually powerless. Like even when you actually aren't able to change anything about your own reality or anybody else's too much other than negatively, but you feel powerful. Her dad had a lot of power, so that made her feel like she had a lot of power, which meant she could treat people the way she wanted to treat them and feel no remorse or grace. Left her friend in jail. It's just like
Yeah.
had the money, stole another friend's boyfriend,
Or yeah.
or it's just like and felt compelled, like it was almost her duty
Yeah.
to do these things, which is back to a values thing, about back to the values conversation. Like when friendship is a value, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like when friendship is a value?
I also want to go back to her attitude had a lot to do with her relationships where, like, her family would come to her rescue. I know she said early in the book, like if one cousin got into a fight, the other
Mhm,
cousin will jump the next oldest person will jump the person. And so she always had this protection around her. So she felt invincible, but she felt like, to her, I feel like that's what she thought a relationship was. Um,
mhm,
the protection and the transactions that benefited her
mhm,
rather
mhm,
than, but it was one-sided. It was never about what she did for anyone.
mhm.
The reason why she moved the way she did, because she always felt like she would never have to suffer any consequences
Right,
because she had this layer of protection. My dad will come to the rescue, my cousins will come to the rescue, my
right.
friends will jump you. So
Yeah.
I think that just coming into the world with that just kind of shaped who she was,
Mhm,
mentality.
mhm, mhm. And this assumption, and maybe an honest assumption, that people are jealous of you, and so that you have to treat them a certain type of way because really at the end of the day they're just jealous of what you have and will try and get it from you if they have the chance, which again, not wrong in realities and circumstances where we are pinned against each other, then it's not untrue, but there's never a way to foster relationships beyond that. If
Right.
that's always our mentality, if we're always against our neighbor, which we are, that's what we've
Mhm.
been, coerced into being, against our neighbors, even when they look like us, but especially when they don't. But the entitlement, like the entitlement to a sense of power that other people are not also entitled to.
Mhm.
Um, and then how we were talking earlier about what her parents modeled for her or didn't model for her, and I think friendship is another one. Like her mom's friends came around when they moved into the house, right, for the parties and the money, for the glamour, but not for the friendship.
Yeah.
And similarly with her dad, he had men, he had a staff,
Yeah.
but they were just like afraid of him, and their livelihood, their income was tied to him liking them,
Associations. Yeah.
and so always forced to be in a position of like receiving respect but not having to give it, of like
Mhm.
receiving admiration but not having to give it, and like that is of course not friendship.
Yeah.
um and in the end, like of both the story but even our like first half of the book, right, she does not have any friends. She is very alone,
Yeah.
despite her perspective of like being the star, of being the one that everybody should.
Like, look, bow down to or
Mhm,
revere. And that's another thing. I think when people build relationships based on reverence and fear, it's always going to crumble. You don't have a
mhm,
foundation because either
mhm.
those people are going to find a way to try to take you down, or like it's always going to end in some way. Like either they're going to take you down, or they're going to find someone else or some other, they're going
Yeah,
to find some way to take you down, whether they do it
yeah,
directly or if they plot long
yeah,
term
yeah,
and find
yeah,
somebody else to do the dirty work for them.
yeah, yeah, which is literally what happens.
Exactly.
Literally what happens, right? And it
Mhm.
makes you wonder, right? Because there's a part where Midnight goes to, like, after Santiago is arrested, Midnight is trying to coordinate something with Winter, but the money that he went to go get, like the backup money, was gone. And he's like, the only reason that's gone is because family knew, like
Yeah.
the stuff that the cops knew was stuff that only family knew,
Mhm.
and then it goes back to what we're talking about, like receiving respect but not giving it, like people living in fear of you, power, friendship, lack of friendship, all the values. It's like, granted, we know cops, we know FBI, like they have infiltrated our communities
Yeah.
since they have been created. But it makes you wonder, does that level of like respect and reverence, like it didn't get you anywhere? Like your own people turned on you also, and also ended up in prison. It's like, and he found, I don't know, I can't remember where it happens in the book, but where he finds out who some of the family members are who
Oh,
ratted him
yeah.
out, and he kills him, like he beats the shit out
Mhm.
of him or whatever in prison, and gets him himself even longer
Maybe for
time
life.
than he
Yeah.
wouldn't have, that he already wasn't getting out. It got even more time. It's just like what does getting respect or like demanding respect like that get you in
Mhm.
actually building authentic relationships on a non-drug dealing level, but especially when you like have that level of power, you know what I mean? To know that somebody's always going to be looking to knock you down, but to not cultivate a different type of community because it's impossible when you're trying to survive, like back to the cycle, right? Like back to what we were talking about
Mhm.
earlier and how it's all you know, it's all you can know. Breaking out of it like it's like a thing you haven't seen. But again, like you said, cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Cautionary tale. Yeah, that's crazy. I felt you said the word earlier, like pity. You felt bad for
Yeah.
Winter, and in the friendship world specifically, that's where I'm like, man, I feel bad for her as a person who really values friendship, sisterhood in new and deep ways, just like the idea of sisterhood without it meaning like you've known somebody forever type of way.
Yeah.
Um, I felt so bad for her.
There was no support.
No support. No, it was like she felt seen as long as she felt
She
seen
was
in
on
a sense of belonging. As long as she had the material, as long as she was on top, as long as people like wanted to be like her. But and she could have cultivated it, right? Our first half of the book, she does get to the foster care,
Mhm.
and there was an attempt, and she wasn't interested because of that same survival mentality, that same outlook on life of I
Until
gotta
she
do mine. Hmm.
until she found a way to make it transactional.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the thing, her mind was always on the benefit. What can I
Hmm.
get out? But not just like relationship or spiritually or mentally. It was always financial. How can I make money from this? How can
Hmm.
I come up and get back to who I was? It was
Hmm.
never about, okay, how can I build a real sisterhood or network and build community? It was
Hmm.
always about the dollar bill with her.
Hmm.
Like the money really led her, but like I said, she was born into this mentality. So that's
Hmm.
all she knows. And that's why I feel bad for her because I'm like, you only know what you know. And she
Yeah.
had no other alternative until Sister Souljah came. And I know that's later in the book. But
Yeah.
even with that, she was so far gone,
Yeah.
there was no way to really turn her back and like
Yeah.
to shift her perspective.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
just who she was, and that's what she was, developed. I mean, that's just she was born to be that way. She was
Yeah.
literally, but her parents created this person.
Yeah. Yeah. Even it's like crazy how you can be so, what's the word? It's like immersed maybe or like inundated with specific messaging. We're all guilty. Like we
Yeah.
all are
And
a part of
doctrine,
it.
yeah.
But that where something that actually makes more sense, it challenges what you believe. And so because it's a challenge to what you believe, you don't believe it. Like you're like, it just
Mhm.
ultimately is not true because the book opens with her being like, just for the record, I hate Sister Soldier. Like she starts
Oh
that
yeah. Mhm.
and is like
Mhm.
coming into her thing. And
Yeah.
then there's a part where she's in the car with Midnight and she comes on the radio. I don't know if it's like a commercial or like public radio or something, right? And
Oh
she
yeah, yeah. It's
is
like the
like,
radio segment.
yeah. And she's like totally not into it. And of course, now I'm listening. I can't wait for part two of this conversation because that's
Yeah.
focus more on what like Sister Soldier's perspective. Like this is
Mhm.
like Winter's perspective today. And it's like, damn, yep, yep. Like I'm reading it and I'm like, dang, I can't even remember. I feel like also the influence of Winter, but also the influence of Soldier while I was a young person
Yeah.
definitely influenced my life and how I saw things. Cause like Winter was right until Sister Soldier entered. Not right, but she was like, you could get with it as a teenager. You were like, girl, yeah, that sounds like fun because I think I'm going to live forever and I'm irresponsible. But then I really enjoyed as an adult reading the second half and then just
Mhm.
like the introduction of Sister Soldier. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, bring back Sister. Like, let's just start, have some billboards. Let's like
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
almost on billboards because still relevant today. But there
Mhm.
are those moments where she's like talking real stuff and Winter's like, in the first half, like before they actually meet, and she's like, doesn't want to hear it, you know what I mean? And it's so sensical, like it makes so much sense, but it is so hard to fathom when you have lived one reality for so long.
Yeah.
And I think to the point, like what we've been saying about how this mirrors life right now, still, it is so hard to imagine different that even when somebody's saying something that you're like, that is totally true and totally feasible, it's so hard to hear. It's so hard to
Yeah.
embrace, you know what I mean? Our identities as Black women, you know, it's like, I know you
Mhm.
keep talking about rest, but where is that? You know, like I know we keep talking about liberation, but we
But
can't,
yeah.
but it's not real because it's not real because we can't touch it because it's not blinging when we walk down the street right now. You know,
Yeah.
it feels so far away. I feel like that is the real metaphor that she was writing about in the book is like how some other counter information can come in. It could save your life, but
Yeah.
you also have to be
Can't
ready,
receive.
willing to receive it.
Also because the examples in front of her don't, it doesn't align with what Sister Souljah is talking about. All she
Yeah.
knows her parents, her surroundings, the big drug dealers, the hustlers in her area. That's all she knows, and that's success to her. So this revolution doesn't make sense to her because she haven't seen any examples of what she deems as success in those
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's it was something I forgot. I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I want to go back to the pity. The biggest thing for me is
Mm,
she's so young and she's so indoctrinated in her beliefs at such a
that's
young age.
that.
Like usually between 16 and 25, you start seeing different points of view in life and your perspective starts shifting. But with her, she's so staunch and so set in her
Yeah.
ways at such a young age.
Yeah.
And part of it makes me want to shake her and
Yeah.
but I'm like, why? I mean, I can see at 25 if she had this mentality, but I'm like, you're only 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
Why are you not open to receiving that there's other ways of living,
Yeah.
that there's it's just, I don't know. Like I said,
Other
I
way.
always go back and forth between pity and anger with Winter.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Hmm. It made me sad. I like was one of the times I was reading it and I came out and I was just like, reading this is her story is making me so much sadder than I think I ever was when I read it before. And I think it was reading it and knowing that we're still fighting that same battle
yeah,
individually, you know, but on a definitely a collective scale in so many of our spaces, and not necessarily in apples to apples, like not necessarily because we're all like living that same reality of like projects or drugs, but just like that stubbornness
yeah,
keeps us from being who we could really be, you know. And it's like
yeah.
somebody even said something to Winter about her style or something. It's like true, like maybe who knows what could have been possible, but like
Oh
her
yes,
innovation, her creativity, like all of that stuff could have served her.
yeah. Sister Soldier said it. She said,
That
she
was
could have been an image
mhm,
consultant, a fashion designer. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, she's so like, she has that entrepreneurial mindset. She's so enterprising. She's so creative. And those talents that can make her more money than she could,
mhm,
in the life that her dad lived. But
mhm,
she can't see that
mhm.
because, like I said, she only knows what she knows. And she's so blinded by that lifestyle that she doesn't see anything else.
Yeah,
Then she's
yeah.
also told the alternatives are not beneficial. That you're basically a loser if you're not in the hood.
If
If you're
you're not, yes,
like it's
yes.
either this or that. Like she has a real like black and white mentality, and her family does too. So it's just
We haven't even talked about that, but just like us, the other side, the
yeah,
like how you would be viewed if you didn't live like this, like the pressure to maintain a reality and a lifestyle. Let's say even if you did know it was harmful, like we're assuming right now, like her dad knew, he knew what he was doing. Her mom was there to benefit. She knew what was up, but also whatever. But just they were all subscribing to the same like forced lifestyle
right.
because it was the definition of survival. You know, like survival wasn't getting out of the hood because she didn't want to leave. She was like, "Why are we leaving? I don't understand.
Yeah,
We are sitting on top of a hill here." And he was running, obviously, and like running from what he thought he could protect his family from. But
yeah.
it also is like it's catching up to you now, and
Hmm.
there's no going backwards. And now the idea of success of like leaving the hood is now really tainted with still just trying to stay survive, like still trying to survive and still trying to flex. Like we have all this money, we have all these cars, you know, we have these cars, we have this money, we have this house, jewels, furs.
Yeah.
because to not have it is to not have made it, to be
Yeah.
unimportant, to be
Yes.
important,
Hmm.
but to feel so important to end up in like for where the story goes, you know what I mean? Like where did feeling important get you in the grand scheme of thing? Like you fell into the trap of the unimportance that we are viewed as, like in the story.
Yeah.
The system does not view you as important.
Wait, so the chapters that we're exploring today, I forgot, like, where does it end? Because there are some things that I'm dying to get to, but I don't want to get
Oh,
too
I
far
know,
ahead
I
in this.
know.
But
So so it's we stop at the end of 10, and at the
okay.
end of 10, she had just like in chapter 10, she's just arriving at the foster home.
Oh, okay. So much has happened. Okay, so we did.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so she went. Wait.
So chapter 10 starts House of Success. It
Okay.
was a group home for teenage
Okay. So
girls.
yeah, the raid happened. She met
Yeah.
with Dusty Bullet. Okay.
Uh-huh.
We didn't
Uh-huh.
even get into all that yet. Like, there's so much.
Oh, right. Her little birthday escapade. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Oh my
Uh-huh.
God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how in the world at 17 are you still in a car going to get a hotel? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
making a sex tape, basically. Like,
Making a
it's
sex
so much.
tape. Making
We
a
didn't
sex
get
tape. And
like it's
then
so
Winter
much
was
stuff.
like, and then, oh my gosh, we did not even talk about that sex tape because it was like a point of pride for her friends. Like, she went back and found out all the stuff that was happening with her dad, but she found out like now, they're like riding the wave. They're just like, or I
Yeah,
can't remember which one it was, Natalie or Simone. I think it was Natalie.
it was Natalie.
It's just like that was her crown to
Hmm.
wear through the hood, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's all like, I think it was Midnight who was like, you out there doing that, and then like with the enemy,
Yeah.
this is what's happening to your family right here. And basically, like how stupid can you be?
Right.
Like how dumb can you be? But it's true. The again back to the like fast living when you're young and it being so attractive, but it's also like access. Like, how is it possible for you to do all of these things? Because well, at this point, dad's in prison, but it's like, where is everybody? Or even a sense of responsibility for yourself.
Right.
For yourself. That was the red leather skirt or like the short
Yeah, it was the red
top
leather
stocking.
outfit to match the car.
Mhm.
And then that was another thing, like this situation is happening to your family in real time, and you're just worried about getting this car and and still in this car to go back to Brooklyn. Like, her
Mhm.
mentality was so skewed even for a 16-year-old. I don't care like what
Mhm.
situation, like she just did not think about the consequences of her actions at
Mhm.
all. Like we were talking about like being teens, having, get doing things, and
Mhm.
you may maybe doing just enough to not get in trouble. But I feel like for the most part, most of us had a conscience.
Yeah.
But her, like, she did never show like she never had that inner dialogue where there was
Yeah.
like good or evil, or good bad from right from wrong, good from bad. She never
Yeah.
had that inner dialogue. It was always just, this is what I want,
That's what I want.
this
Yeah.
is the tunnel vision. She just had tunnel vision on the things that she wanted.
Yeah. In that values thing that we were talking about, just like where the concern of like not wanting at least your parents, like when we were growing up, it was like you didn't mind getting in trouble somewhere else as long as your parents didn't find out. And so it
Mhm.
was like, or if your mama told you something and that was the word, you were like, I don't care what the teacher said. Like,
Yeah.
mama said
Mama
this.
said.
I'll go with this because she's
Uh-huh.
who's gonna have it. Like, you can go tell the principal if you want to, but my mom said that I can go to the bathroom whenever I want to. I actually
Mhm.
remember that. My mom being like, you have to raise your hand. Like, yes, obviously there's a little bit of order, but like they can say no to you going to the bathroom in
Bathroom,
school.
yeah.
Like, no, no. And I remember feeling so empowered. Like, yeah, I wish you would tell me no, I can't go to the, to the
Exactly.
bathroom. And so it's like, where was the sense of I want to make my parents proud, or I don't want to on the flip side, I don't want to disappoint my parents. But we talked about mom having her as a teenager, dad, as priorities. So it's like none of that was also present to give any sense of right or wrong. Like
Right.
when everything they're doing is wrong, and she is like, "Well, we got to do this to survive," and like, heck yeah, we do this, and it's not our fault that people are stupid enough to buy it. Then there is no concept of right and wrong.
And you know what's interesting to me? There was the part where, because for the most part, at least her mom, I would say both parents, but her mom especially encouraged a lot of her foolery. But
Hmm.
then when that it came to that one part where her mom, she had got shot in the face,
Hmm.
and her mom wrote that letter, that hand letter telling her don't go to Brooklyn. I would think that would have been alarming.
Hmm.
If nothing else,
Hmm.
that would have alarmed Winter, because your mom has been encouraging for the most part the
Right.
lifestyle and going back to Brooklyn. I remember it was in one part where she was like pouting and upset that they had moved to New Jersey. But now you got your mom, she's been in this tragic situation. She's still recovering, and then she's warning you, don't go to Brooklyn. I would think if nothing else, that would have been like, okay, let me like
Listen.
lay
Yeah.
low, listen and lay
Yeah.
low. But if
Yeah.
anything, it seemed like that fueled her and just encouraged her to go to Brooklyn even more. So,
Hmm.
like I said, she never seemed to have that inner dialogue where she's like stop and assess things and see,
Hmm.
like, okay, if I do this, what will happen? Or,
What will happen?
it's never that. I never saw that throughout the entire, even at the very end. I've never saw
Yeah.
that
You
from
know
her.
what that makes me think of, and I've thought of this in my days of working in education or just like adults as well, is where we don't have anything to really live for or to strive for, then consequence is not the same. It doesn't have the same weight. It's like when you
Mhm.
have young people who really care about basketball, like that's the end to develop other things because the basketball is a value. You want to go play basketball, these trophies
Yes.
or these grades, and so it's like, and that's not just usually a level of basketball. It's like you want to be in the NBA, right? So that
Yeah.
requires discipline, that requires like all of these things that we're trying to teach young people about. And even now, right, we decide, like I decide, I'm like, oh, I have an event the next day. So I'm deciding the night before maybe not to go out and drink as much or to not go, to get myself
Mhm.
together because I know that what's coming on the back end, and
Yeah.
it's
There's
like
usually an incentive. Yeah. Like,
an incentive, a value,
yeah.
and or like an incentive or something that matters to you that you
Hmm.
don't want to jeopardize.
That's true.
And Winter didn't have anything. She
At
had no
all.
future. She had no future vision for herself. I think the vision was just to stay on top, always have nice clothes, but also we witnessed her mom have that's it. Like
Yeah.
it is a full-time job to be a bad bitch means that there's nothing else that you care about but yourself. And
Yeah.
there's nothing else you're like pouring into but yourself. And so it's really easy to not have a sense of duty or consequence when because to you it's not going to harm your future of like going to college by like by getting in trouble, right? You're like, I'm trying to go out here and live free, so there's no consequence to that because that's what I'm trying to do.
Right. I remember there was even a point in the book where Midnight was trying to ask her, like, basically, like, what are her
What
values?
do you care about? Uh-huh.
What does she care about? And
Oh
everything
yeah.
was so shallow and superficial. I remember even as a 19-year-old reading that, I was just like, girl, shut up. Like, what? Like, what are your responsibilities in life? Like, even me at a young age, I'm like, I'm gotta get up and go to work. Like, I think I remember vividly, like, working. I was either at 19, I was working in retail, but I remember like because I would read that book on BART going back and forth. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking as I'm going back and forth from my job, and I'm like, she literally sitting here thinking that life is just for play. Like you just you get to do
Mm-hmm.
it, smoke weed, look fly,
And that's
and just
it.
gonna keep going in that circle for the rest of your life.
That's it. I know I'm looking for it because I just read it last night and he was like, what are you into? And she was like, oh, here it is. I'm about to find it. She said, what do you want to be when you grow up, Winter? Whatever. Maybe I'll get a job like yours. He said he had plans. Um, he said, what are you into? I like to enjoy myself. And she said, what about you? He said, I like to feel good, relax, get high, fuck, dance, shake my ass, shop. I like to be turned on and I love to turn another motherfucker on. Like that was her response to what are you into?
I wanted to slap her, even in real like the first time I read that.
Double
That
slap.
part of the book was always like I was consistently annoyed by.
Just the
I'm like, she's so vapid. I'm
simple,
like,
basic and small. I like movies. I like chilling with my girls. Matter of fact, if I wasn't stuck here with you, I'd have plenty of good shit to get into. And no answer to what do you want to be when you grow up.
no. And she was 16 saying this. That's the part I could not get past. I was just like you came into the world as a grown woman because I'm like the way she talked, like I kept forgetting. And even now, like if I read it, I always have to keep reminding myself she's only like
She's a
16 when
child.
they started the book. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Exactly. She was a child with no ambition, and nobody ever expected anything of her. Maybe that's the other side of the coin of having something to look forward to or work towards or care about is expectations. We don't really hear or witness her parents having any expectations for her, um, other than to like live the life that they built for her, essentially, even without saying it. But it's to care about what she cares about. Cars, sex, drugs,
yeah.
partying.
I didn't even see an end game for Ricky because usually with especially with kingpins, they're trying to retire. Like they have their certain number and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna move to Jersey or wherever they move,
Mhm,
Miami, and retire. That's usually what the common theme is. But with her entire family, there was never any end game.
mhm.
So how
No,
can she have one if her
exactly.
business is gonna keep going until this happened, you know?
He had said something to her when he found out that she liked midnight
Mm-hmm.
and was like, or either something about midnight or something about the lifestyle, but basically he was just like that it never ends. Like he makes a statement to her after they moved into the new house and is
Mm-hmm.
like, it living a lifestyle like this never ends. You can never stop looking over your back, over your shoulder. Like you can never stop trying to stay on top because somebody will always try and take you out on top. And I think that was like the one bit that, and like you need a man who like goes to school and like normal things is like the only bit of advice. And I feel like those things came to him because he was already in deep trouble.
Yeah.
He could already foresee that
Mm-hmm.
where his life was going, perhaps. And sometimes you got to chalk it up. You're like, I'm either gonna die or end up in prison. Like it would be stupid to not get that far on top and think that, like to feel untouchable. But I think it was hitting too late,
Way
too
too
little,
late.
too late to be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no, I don't want this life for you. But we hear that in no other part of the book.
No. And what's interesting is even though the message came way too late, I noticed that it came from her father, her
Hmm.
mother encouraged. Like it was always like this angel, like it seemed like it was the angel and devil on her shoulder.
Hmm.
Like even though he came in at the 11th hour with the information, he did try to steer the, her course, the course of her life by telling her, like, you don't want this. Where her mom is like encouraging it. And then I was thinking about even like the relationship with Midnight, well, the a quote unquote
Hmm.
relationship because there was none. But
Yeah.
she's after this grown man because I think Midnight was like 20 or something, and you're
He said he was
16.
22 when she was,
Yeah,
yeah, 16. Hmm.
yeah, and you're like pursuing this grown man who's
Hmm.
actively rejecting you, don't
Hmm.
want you, not interested, and then you got your mother hyping it up. So, and then it was not even just with Midnight, even like just in general. I remember there was like a part of the book where her mom and dad were having a conversation about Winter having sex. And she was like, well, if a girl wants to get fucked, she's going to get fucked, and I'll make sure
Yeah.
she's on the pill. And it's like,
Yeah.
you're not doing anything to say, like, don't be like me. I had you at 14
Yeah.
years old. Like, this
Yeah.
ain't the life you want. I made it look easy, but it's not. Like, it was
Right.
never those type of conversation. It was more like, girl, walk in my shoes,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that is also the same thing that conflicted Winter, or that's kind of like the source of all of this is no future, nothing to care about, because the same way we were saying, like Winter didn't care about being a big sister.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom had four daughters and changed nothing about her behavior. Like you said, encouraged it. And having those daughters and living and seeing what was happening in the world was still not enough to encourage different, you know. But she wanted to be a good mom, or when then things hit the fan, she wanted to know where her kids were going. Like there was all of that. But
Yeah,
again, too little, too late, because there was also not evidence that you should keep them.
right.
That you would be responsible for them, and had no money, had no source of income of your own, had no job, could not probably get a job or know where to begin. So you actually literally would not be able to take care of those kids because you don't have sustainability, because that all was reliant on one person and one
Yeah.
lifestyle.